A few months ago I asked my lovely followers what kind of content you would like to see more on this channel, and many of you requested travel vlogs from Central and Eastern Europe. Now, generally I'm not a big traveler, but since I'm such a people pleaser, I decided to visit a handful of countries and film some videos for you all. And I thought the best place to start would be Zagreb, the twin city of my hometown Cluj-Napoca. So in this video I tell you about my journey to Croatia, and I explain the history behind all the cool buildings, monuments and other historical landmarks I've come across there, just to show you why I adore Zagreb so much. Hello culture geeks and folklore freaks, and welcome back to my channel. In case you're new here, hi, I'm Anna, the Transylvanian villager, and I make videos about random topics related to Central and Eastern Europe because I feel like there's not enough content about it online. So if you're into that, smash that subscribe button. Recently I had a little road trip starting from Cluj to Budapest, Zagreb and Ljubljana, visiting some friends and family. So I had the chance to take a good look at these cities and learn about their intriguing history. I was especially lucky in Zagreb because a good buddy of mine who happens to live there acted as my assistant and my tourist guide. Now, if you've been around this channel, you probably already know him. He's a fellow Central European content creator.
Hello everyone, my name is Joža and I am the host of the YouTube channel Kropnik, where I make videos mostly about Croatia, but also about other random things related to Central and Southeastern Europe.
Welcome back, homie, and without further ado, let's dissect this topic. Croatia is a country where Balkan, Mediterranean and Central European cultures merge together to create something fascinating that I absolutely adore. This little country of 3.9 million people is famous for being the birthplace of Nikola Tesla, the Dalmatian dog breed, the parachute and the torpedo. Although the country is more famous for its beautiful coastline, the continental side is also full of amazing places thanks to the great architecture and the interesting historical background of each location. Their capital city Zagreb dates back to the Middle Ages, built upon the ruins of the ancient Roman settlement called Andautonia. The name Zagreb was first used in the 11th century after the Slavs had arrived in the Balkans or in Central Europe. The origin of the name is still debated, but the most agreed upon theory is that it has been derived from the verb zagrab, meaning to scoop or to dig.
Zagreb was originally made from two distinct settlements that eventually merged together to form the city that we know today. These two settlements are Gradec or Grič, the town of craftsmen, traders and other ordinary people, and Kaptol, which was controlled by the church. The two towns were located on adjacent hills, between which there was a creek called Medveščak, and due to the constant clashes and conflicts between the two towns, the wooden bridge on this creek was nicknamed the Bloody Bridge. Gradec was declared a free royal town in 1242 by the Hungarian and Croatian king Bela IV, and slowly became an important economical, administrative and trading center of the region. By the 17th century, the name Zagreb had already become established and used to refer to both towns, and after the 1776 fire had destroyed a large part of Varaždin, which was the capital of Croatia at the time, the institutions started moving to Zagreb, eventually making it the new administrative and political capital of Croatia. Due to political turmoil in 1848 and the rise of Croatian national consciousness, Gradec and Kaptol officially merged in 1850, making Zagreb a single administrative unit and starting an era of rapid development and urbanization of the city. The big earthquake of 1880, which destroyed or damaged large parts of the city, started a period of reconstruction and revival which gave the city center its current look. In 2020, Zagreb was hit by two strong earthquakes, one in March, one in December, which caused a lot of damage to the city, especially to the old Austro-Hungarian era buildings in the city center.
With that said, let's look at some buildings from the medieval era. Our first destination is the upper town, also known as Gradec. The area is filled with beautiful buildings, and the most outstanding ones date back to the 13th century. Fearing the Mongol invasions, the citizens began the construction of the city's protecting walls, sometimes in the 1240s, which enclosed the settlement in the shape of a triangle. It stopped being the priest's tower, and the base was the southern wall, known today as Strossmayer Promenade. A part of these walls was the Lotuschak Tower, a building that my tourist guide Joža will tell you about a bit more.
The Lotuschak Tower is a medieval tower built in the Romanic style, and its name comes from the bastardized form of the Latin words campana latrunculorum, meaning thieves' bell, a reference to the bell that rang every day to signal the town's gates were closing. It was a part of the Zagreb city walls and was originally built in the 13th century, but it was upgraded and given its current look in the 19th century. On top of the tower, there is a cannon that fires every day exactly at noon, and to this day I can't think of a better way to throw unsuspecting tourists than bringing them to the tower around noon without telling them about the cannon. Like every weird local tradition, the cannon has an interesting backstory, and of course, it involves everybody's favorite historical entity, the Ottomans. According to the story, the Ottomans were besieging the city, and one day the defenders of the city took the cannon on top of the tower, aimed it at the Ottoman camp, and fired, destroying the lunch of the Ottoman commander with the cannonball and causing the Ottomans to run in panic.
Another interesting piece of the old protecting walls is the stone gate, which was built around 1266 and was damaged multiple times since the city was mainly built of wood and fires were quite frequent. There are a few dark stories about it, such as the fact that the owner of the gate was a woman mentioned in historical records as Widow Moldar, who was married to a much older city judge that passed away after a stone of the gate fell onto him. Katarina Moldar was the one who commissioned the creation of the chapel, where she used to hang out with other religious women, eating cake and admiring the beautiful painting of Virgin Mary with baby Jesus. The tower burns down in the fire of 1731, but miraculously the painting has survived, and 200 years after its survival, the figures of the painting were crowned with gold. Currently, the artwork is protected by a beautiful Baroque fence, which was added in the late 18th century. Next up is the St. Mark's Church, which is one of the most iconic buildings of Zagreb, thanks to the beautiful coat of arms on its roof, which is made of colorful tiles. And of course, there's also the portal, which is furnished with some beautiful sculptures. The church dates back to the 13th century, and it's currently under renovation due to damages caused by the 2020 earthquake. The portal consists of 11 stone Gothic sculptures and 4 wooden Baroque sculptures representing Virgin Mary, Jesus Christ, Saint Mark, and the Apostles. The emblematic tiles are a later addition, constructed in the 1880s, representing Croatia, Dalmatia, and Slavonia on the left side and Zagreb on the right. I really adore the unique design of this building, and I hope that one day I will have the chance to visit it again when the renovations are finally done. The building that stands out the most in the city's skyline is the Zagreb Cathedral, located in the capital area, which is the second tallest building in Croatia, only 2 meters shorter than the Dalmatian Tower. The history of this beautiful giant dates back to the 12th century, as they began the construction of the original cathedral in the early 1100s, which took over a century to finish. But it was destroyed by the Tatars only 3 decades later. The reconstruction began under Bishop Timotei, and the result looks significantly different from the current form. At the end of the 15th century, when Croatia was attacked by the Ottomans, a fortification was erected around the cathedral to protect it from the Berek warriors, and a large portion of it still exists today. The building was almost completely destroyed in 1880, and its current form was designed by Herman Bolle, whose beautiful artwork you can see all over Croatia. The cathedral was severely damaged in the 2020 earthquake, in which the tip of the southern spire broke off and crashed onto the Archbishop's palace, so they had to remove the northern spire because it started leaning. I wish we could have gotten closer and taken some footage of the details, but the area is closed due to the construction work. Lastly, there's the Manduševac, a spring of water which has been around since ancient times. According to Croatian folklore, Zagreb was named after this fountain due to a rather amusing story. Legend says that a girl named Manda was near the water spring when a young knight passed by on horse. He was thirsty, so he yelled to the girl, "Mando, Zagrabi," asking the girl to grab him some water. So that's how Manduševac and Zagreb got their names. Now another legend states that whoever drinks from the fountain will fall in love with Zagreb, and even though I myself didn't drink for it because of course it's not drinkable anymore, I was still captivated by the city. All in all, walking around between these old buildings felt like I traveled back in time. Not to mention that there are a handful of great restaurants in the area which are perfect for eating strictly straight out of the oven with a pipi cola on the side. Although these medieval buildings and landmarks are some of the most iconic pieces of Zagreb's architecture, there are quite a lot of buildings and monuments erected later under Austro-Hungarian rule. The Kingdom of Croatia became a part of the Habsburg monarchy's lands in 1527, but things got a bit complicated during the Croatian-Ottoman Wars. The Austrians gained full leadership again after the Great Turkish War. However, there were some ethnic conflicts due to the forceful Germanization and Magyarization in the empire. Later, during the 1848 revolution, the Battle of Croatia collabed with the Austrians against the Hungarians, but after the Austro-Hungarian Compromise in 1867, the Kingdom of Croatia lost its domestic autonomy, and although they had free choice in administrative, educational, religious and judicial affairs, the ban was still appointed by the paprika lovers, and 55% of the tax money went to Budapest. And things were like that until World War I. So let's look at some buildings and statues. Close to the Lotusčak Tower, you can find the beautiful St. Catherine's Church, which was built by the Jesuits in the 17th century on the site of a rundown 14th century Dominican church. The church is the oldest and most significant Baroque building of Croatia, combining elements of Baroque and Central European late Gothic architecture staples. The design draws inspiration from the Jesuit church in Vienna and the St. John the Baptist Cathedral of Trnava. In the upper town, you might run into the Greek Catholic co-cathedral of Saints Cyril and Methodius as well. It is unclear when the church was originally built, since it burned down in 1766 and all its records were lost, but people estimate its construction to the early 17th century. This building was also severely damaged in the 1880 earthquake, and it was reconstructed based on the designs of Hermann Bolle in Neo-Byzantine style.
The palace of the Croatian parliament was built in the 18th century on top of an older building that burned down in 1731 and is a mixture of different architectural styles, notably Classicism, Neo-Renaissance and Secession. Besides the parliament, the palace was also the administrative building of Zagreb County. However, in the 20th century, it became obvious that the Croatian parliament and Zagreb County could not share the same building anymore, mostly due to a lack of space. So the parliament palace was upgraded and given its current look. The palace, which is still used by the Croatian parliament, is located on St. Mark's Square, right next to St. Mark's Church. But unfortunately, due to an incident that happened in 2020, the whole square remains closed and barricaded to this day. It was a really messed up situation. Basically, a guy came to the St. Mark's Square and started shooting at the police officers that were guarding the area, wounding one of them and unaliving himself a bit later.
In the lower town, you can see a stunning 19th century statue of Saint George and the Dragon. Since medieval times, the legend of Saint George killing the dragon was used to symbolize the victory of Christianity over paganism and the struggle between good and evil. This particular portrayal shows a dynamic image of Saint George as he is about to slay the dragon, which is a common portrayal of this legend, and it was created by Austrian sculptor Anton Verkon, whose beautiful Baroque statues you can find all over Zagreb, Vienna and even some parts of Germany. This statue was originally made for a Viennese nobleman's palace, but the Croatian Archbishop brought his incasts to Zagreb in order to create a copy. But this isn't the only statue of the saint in the city. In the upper town, you can stumble upon a statue of Saint George praying after he slayed the dragon, commissioned by an Austro-Hungarian paleontologist. Not to be rude, but I find this statue hilarious, because the dragon looks like a snake with a mustache or a catfish. At first sight, I couldn't figure out what it was supposed to portray, since this is a very unique portrayal of the legend. Unlike the usual dynamic moment of killing portrayal, this one shows a peaceful moment moment after battle when he takes off his helmet to say a prayer and thank God for the victory. Close to the Manduševac, you can find the statue of Count Josip Jelačić, a historical figure praised for his military campaigns during the 1848 revolution and the abolition of serfdom in Croatia. Although he is seen as a hero in Croatia, in Austria people see him as a rebel, and the Kurdish enthusiasts might even call him a traitor. This statue was also made by Anton Verkorn, the sculptor who made the first angel statue, and it's a beautiful Baroque artwork. The statue was removed by the communists in 1947 and reinstalled in 1990. And although Josip's sword originally pointed towards Hungary, today it faces to the south. Another signature work of Verkorn is the Virgin Mary with Angel statue standing in front of the Zagreb Cathedral, built in the 1880s as part of the cathedral's reconstruction project. The sculpture is a collaboration between Verkorn and Bollé, as Bollé designed the fountain and Verkorn was responsible for the gold-plated statues of the Virgin Mary and the four angels. The four figures symbolize the Christian virtues of faith, hope, innocence, and humility. Each angel has a different design, and my favorite one is this one, holding a huge feather pen. The details in Bollé's fountain are absolutely stunning too, especially on the column and the faces that spit water. In the Zrinjevac Park, you can stumble upon an interesting little gem known as the Meteorological Column, a 135-year-old weather station that studies the effects of the climate on human health. This was a donation from a well-known army doctor, created in collaboration with the one and only Hermann Bollé, made of Istrian marble. Surprisingly, the Meteorological Column still works today, but due to the fact that it doesn't meet today's standard measurement by the World Meteorological Organization, the data provided by it isn't considered accurate nor official. One of the funniest sights in the city is the world's shortest funicular at the Strossmayer Promenade, operating on a tiny 66-meter track. This was built and put into operation in 1890, and it was originally propelled by a steam engine, but the steam pressure was so low and repairs were so frequent that it remained out of operation nearly half of the time, until it was replaced by an electric motor in the 1930s. A significant building from this era is the Zagreb main railway station, designed by Hungarian architect Paul József, who was responsible for the creation of several railway stations in the territory of the former Austro-Hungarian Empire, including the one in my home city Cluj-Napoca as well. His iconic designs are made mostly in Renaissance eclectic and neoclassical style, characterized by their modesty and fine sense of proportion and scale, with some beautiful sculptures standing above the arching entrances. The station opened in 1892, and it is one of the largest public buildings constructed in the 19th century Zagreb. I absolutely love the details of this one. It's just so satisfying to stand in front of it and admire the perfect symmetry of all the windows, columns, and everything about it is just stunning. Next up is the beautiful National Theatre of Zagreb, which happens to be Joža's favorite building.
The building of the Croatian National Theatre is, in my opinion, one of the most beautiful buildings in the entire city. After the 1880 earthquake, which damaged the old theatre on St. Mark's Square, a new theatre was commissioned, and the beautiful neo-Baroque design was made by the famous Viennese architect duo Kellmer and Fellner, the same ones who designed the Cluj-Napoca National Opera too. After some administrative and political shenanigans, the construction of the new theatre's building started in 1894 and was finished in 1895. The building was opened on the 14th of October 1895 by Emperor Franz Joseph I, and there is an interesting legend about the event involving the then Ban, or governor of Croatia, Karol Kuen Hedervari. Allegedly, Hedervari, who was Hungarian and known for his nationalism and aggressive Hungarianization politics, brought a wagon of Hungarian gravel to the train station so that the emperor would first walk on Hungarian soil when he came off the train in Zagreb.
Close to the main railway station, there's a beautiful art pavilion opened in 1898, which is the oldest gallery in Southeastern Europe, designed specifically for exhibitions, thanks to one of my favorite Croatian painters, Blaho Bubovac. The pavilion was first built in Budapest during the preparations for the Millennium exhibitions that Croatia, together with Slavonia, had to contribute to. Led by Bubovac, Croatian artists requested their own separate art pavilion for the festivity, which was partially designed by Korp Florish, the architect of Cluj's Central University Library. After the exhibition, the building's skeleton was transported to Zagreb, where it was taken over by everyone's favorite Austrian duo, Fellner and Helmer, who designed a new version of the building based on on the iron skeleton. Another interesting piece of that era is the fisherman with snake sculpture, which I somehow miss despite the fact that we've been walking around this exact area all day long. Now, just like everything else in Zagreb, this one also has an amusing story behind it, because after the completion of the statue, sculptor Simeon Roxanditz received some news that the ship transporting his work had sunk, so he went ahead and created another one. However, that turned out to be just a silly gossip, and the ship didn't actually sink, so he ended up with two copies of the sculpture, and one of them was set up in Belgrade and the other one in Zagreb. I'm really sad that I missed this one, because looking at it from certain angles would have given me a great opportunity to make some distasteful jokes about it. In front of the National Theatre, you can see the Well of Life fountain, a Vienna Secession style sculpture representing the cycle of life. It portrays 10 nude figures ranging from the age of a small child to an old man, and some of them are embracing or talking with each other, while the oldest one just passively stares at his reflection in the water. It's a chilling portrayal of the aging process and the passing of time, made by Croatia's most famous sculptor Ivan Meštrović, whose work you can find all over Europe and even in the US.
The building of the Croatian State Archive is located on the Lenući's Horseshoe, which is a series of parks and squares in the city center that resemble a horseshoe, or the letter U, and contains, among other things, the National Theatre, the Botanical Garden, and King Tomislav Square. The building is considered the most beautiful example of the secessionist architectural style in the city. It was finished in 1913, and besides the State Archive, it also used to house the National and University Library.
Close to the National Theatre, you can run into a 19th century Neo-Renaissance palace, which is currently used as an art museum known as Mimara. The museum houses over 3,700 works of art ranging from French Impressionists to ancient pottery and Chinese jade, which were all donated to the museum by Ante Topić Mimara. The museum was opened to the public in 1978, and Westerners often criticized it, claiming that everything in the collection is fake or stolen, yet none of them has ever shown any proof of that claim. And they didn't even try to verify it, despite the fact that the museum is open for research. Sadly, the building has been severely damaged during the 2020 earthquake, and it's currently closed for visitations, so I couldn't check it out on the inside. All in all, I really enjoyed discovering the buildings and monuments of that era, due to the fact that the Austro-Hungarian influence reminded me of my home city, Cluj-Napoca, which, as you already know, I'm deeply in love with. I was glad to find buildings designed by the same people who worked on some iconic landmarks in my city, because those really solidified the twin city relationship between the two places. However, World War I brought an end to this era, and a completely different influence left his mark on the city. After World War I, Zagreb became a part of the Kingdom of Yugoslavia, a state in Southeast and Central Europe that existed from 1918 until 1941, which was originally called Kingdom of Serbs, Croats and Slovenes until 1929, when it was renamed Yugoslavia, literally meaning the land of South Slavs. My favorite building from that era is the Esplanade Zagreb Hotel, which is a historic luxury hotel built in 1925 to provide accommodation for passengers of the famous Orient Express train, which traveled between Paris and Istanbul. Although multiple architects contributed to its creation, the one credited for its current appearance is Dionis Sunko, whose work you can find all over Zagreb. After its opening, the hotel became the center of Zagreb's social life, but there were some controversial events tied to its name as well. According to rumors, the first Croatian striptease party was actually held there at the farewell celebration for an Italian count. Also, during the Second World War, it was used by, how to say this in YouTube-friendly terms, a group of people who were followers of an annoying manlet with a funny mustache. Aside from its beautiful design, I also enjoyed hanging out in its park, which has this beautiful fountain in it. A few steps away, you can see one of the most iconic landmarks of that era, which is King Tomislav's statue facing Zagreb's railway station. The statue portrays Croatia's first ruler, King Tomislav of Croatia, who reigned from around 910 until until 928. Although the sculpture was finished in 1938, it was only placed on the square after World War II. The bas-reliefs on the side are a later addition portraying the king's coronation and the reconciliation of the Serbian Duke Zaharia and Bulgarian King Petar, which were temporarily taken down by the communists and put back in 1991. Another great site of the city is the Dolac Market, which was opened in the 1930s. This is an atmospheric farmers market, well known for its combination of traditional open market stalls and a sheltered market below. Sadly, we arrived right at the closing time and people were already packing up their stuff, but usually farmers from surrounding villages sell their fresh, homemade products as well as flowers and lace here. My favorite thing about this market is the bronze statue of a market woman, Kumica Barica, Kumica meaning godmother or woman from a rural area, and Barica is a stereotypical name in the area, chosen for the statue by the citizens of Zagreb shortly after its unveiling.
The monument to Nikola Tesla is located on the corner of Masaryk and Preradović streets. The monument was made by the famous Croatian sculptor Ivan Meštrović, and ironically, just like Tesla himself, the monument is also controversial to this day. You see, Meštrović made the monument for the Ruđer Bošković Institute, and for a long time it stood in the institute's park next to the statue of the famous Croatian mathematician, astronomer and philosopher Ruđer Bošković. However, in 2006, on the 150th anniversary of Tesla's birth, the monument was moved to its current location, and the plan was to make a copy of the monument and keep it here and return the original to the Ruđer Bošković Institute where Meštrović himself wanted it to be. The family of the sculptor wanted to respect his wishes and didn't allow the copy to be made, and the original was never returned to its former location due to bureaucratic shenanigans. So it's still on this corner, causing controversy 17 years after it was put in this place.
During World War II, a pedestrian tunnel known as Tunel Grič was built under the city's historic neighborhood, which was used as a bomb shelter and a promenade. The tunnel consists of a central hall connecting a total of 6 passageways. This fell out of use after World War II, but it was renewed in 1990 when it was needed again as a shelter during the Croatian War of Independence. Amusingly, this was also the location of Croatia's first rave, and they still organize parties there now and then. In 2016, the tunnel was remodeled and opened to the public, serving as a tourist attraction. Now, skipping the dark parts of World War II and all the ethnic conflicts, in 1945 Zagreb ended up under the rule of the Socialist Federal Republic of Yugoslavia, led by Josip Broz Tito, in more or less good conditions until his death in 1980. After Tito's death, things went on a downhill slope, which led to even more ethnic conflicts that ended in a gruesome war, which caused the fall of Yugoslavia. And Croatia finally became an independent country in 1991. Since the 90s, a handful of interesting statues have been set up all around the city, including the statue of Croatian author and journalist Marija Jurić, aka Zagorka, which literally means a woman from the Zagorje. Now, Zagorka was the first Croatian woman to become a professional journalist and a significant champion of equal rights. And lastly, if you walk around the music academy, you might notice this interesting composition of a long pin and a ball. From a specific angle, this actually looks like a musical note in which the pin symbolizes masculinity and the ball is a symbol for femininity. Although the modern elements of the city aren't as iconic as the old ones, we cannot overlook their significance. These landmarks managed to capture a complicated piece of Zagreb's history, both the good and the bad ones, and regardless of the dark past some of them hold, they are still pretty captivating. Doing research for this video was a lot of fun, given how much I enjoyed my time in Zagreb. I especially enjoyed finding common elements between the Croatian capital and my home city, and reading all the intriguing, amusing, dark and oftentimes bizarre stories tied to the buildings and the monuments. Aside from admiring the stunning architecture, I really enjoyed hanging out at the parks and walking around the streets of the historical side of the city. I was stunned by the view from the Strossmayer promenade, especially because I managed to capture the sunset. All in all, I had a positive experience in this city, partially because Joža was a great tourist guide, so go check out his channel and show him some love.
Yes, due to my expertise and the extensive knowledge of my own home city, we only got lost a couple of times and only missed a couple important sites.
Well, yeah. But enough about that. Have you been to Zagreb or are you planning on visiting it? Tell me in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, give me a thumbs up, and if you want to see more content about Central and Eastern Europe, check out my other videos. Next time I'm gonna talk about my trip to Ljubljana, and this year I'm planning to visit more places from the Central European and Balkan region, so subscribe or the copper dick hour will greet you. Thanks for tuning in and have a nice day.
Ljubav se ne trži, niti ne kupuje. Ljubav se ne trži, niti ne kupuje. Ki ljubiti ne zna, ki ljubiti ne zna, naj se ne pljuje.